So imagine you are like an executive at Paramount.
Okay, I'm with you.
You've got tens of millions of dollars tied up in this highly anticipated blockbuster fantasy movie. The intellectual property is massive. The cast is locked in, right?
Right. Everything is set.
Everything is mapped out. And then on the 4th of July, your own executive producer, who, by the way, also happens to be the original author of the book, takes to TikTok.
Oh, wow. That's never good.
No, it's not. She doesn't post a teaser or like cute behind-the-scenes footage. She posts a screenshot telling the whole world that she has explicitly banned your lead actress from contact.
It's just a PR nightmare.
Oh,
Absolute nightmare.
Right. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are dissecting this digital divorce that is just actively burning down a Hollywood PR machine.
Yeah, and if you've opened your feed recently, you know what it feels like to drink from that fire hose of internet drama.
Exactly. You see a trending hashtag, you see a fractured fan base, and it is almost impossible to figure out the actual mechanics of what went wrong behind closed doors.
It really is. So today we are looking at the architecture of a very specific, very modern kind of pop culture disaster.
We're looking at a masterclass in how modern entertainment, hyper-vigilant internet fandoms, and, the independent creator economy all violently intersect.
It's a fascinating case study.
Yeah.
It really shatters that traditional illusion of Hollywood harmony.
It totally does. So our source material today is a YouTube video transcript from an independent commentator. His name is John Delarose.
Right.
And his video is titled Amandla Stenberg, Blocked by the Author of Children of Blood and Bone Before Movie.
That's quite a title.
Yeah, it grabs. But our mission today is much larger than just, recounting celebrity gossip.
Definitely.
We want to map out the anatomy of this controversy. We want to answer this bigger question of how independent internet commentators interpret and frame massive pop culture flashbacks.
And how they use them to build their own audience, really.
Exactly. Now, before we get into the weeds, I do need to make a really clear disclaimer regarding the nature of our source material.
Yeah, this is important.
The commentary we're analyzing contains some very strong, highly politically charged. They relate to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is commonly known as DEI.
It touches heavily on race, skin color, and modern Hollywood hiring practice.
Right. So I just want to assure you, the listener, that our goal in this deep dive is to impartially report on the commentator's claim.
We just want to understand the ecosystem of this specific disc.
Exactly. We are not endorsing, validating, or taking sides on the ideological viewpoints presented by the source. Our job is just to map the terror.
So you can understand the landscape of the argument itself. Because, understanding the framework of this argument is essential media literacy right now.
It really is. Whether you agree with his underlying philosophy or not, his method of funneling this cultural outrage into an alternative media ecosystem is just incredibly effective.
It is. It's a business model we're seeing replicated all over the internet.
So let's unpack this inciting incident. The project at the center of the storm is the film adaptation of this massively popular young adult fantasy novel called Children of Blood and Bone.
Huge book. Massive fan base.
Right. Paramount Pictures has the reins, and they've slated the film for release on January 15th, 2027. And the author is Tomi Adeyemi.
But she isn't just an author who sold the rights and walked away.
No, not at all. The source highlights that Adeyemi co-wrote the screenplay, and she serves as an executive producer on.
Which fundamentally changes the power dynamics at play here.
How so?
Well, when an author is an executive producer and a co-writer, they are contractually and financially embedded in the core apparatus of the movie. They have a seat at the table.
Right, they aren't just a consultant.
Exactly. They are supposed to be the foundational pillar of the marketing strategy, like the bridge between the existing fans of the book and the new cinematic audience.
Which makes this July 4th TikTok post so baffling. You have an author and executive producer actively detonating her own project years before it even hits theaters.
It's wild. Yeah. Let's look at those specific receipts she posted.
Yeah, because they are incredibly aggressive. So the first screenshot she shares in the video is a message she sent to an unspecified group of recipients.
What did it say?
It just says, quote, "There is a reason I will not post anything about the adaptation of my work. That's all."
Wow. So it's a calculated escalation.
Yeah, it's what internet culture calls vague booking.
Right. Vague booking, but deployed at a corporate level. By refusing to name names initially, she creates this massive information vacuum.
And in the digital age, an information vacuum is instantly filled with fan speculation, right?
Speculation, paranoia, algorithmic engagement. She is effectively marshaling her highly influential TikTok fan base.
The book talk community.
Exactly. She's signaling to them that the studio has somehow betrayed the source material, all without actually violating the specifics of her contract.
See, I'm struggling with the mechanics of this, though. If you are Paramount, why the total radio silence? Like if my house is on fire, I call the fire department. Paramount is just sitting in the burning living room pretending they don't smell smoke. Why aren't they issuing a statement?
Because they're trapped in a legal and public relations paradox.
A paradox.
Yeah. The silence is likely dictated by the very non-disclosure agreements that were designed to prevent this kind of thing.
Oh, right. NDA.
NDAs are the foundational glue of Hollywood production. If Paramount issues a statement, they are forced to either validate the author's anger, which throws their lead actress under the bus.
Or they have to publicly condemn their own executive producer.
Exactly, which alienates the built-in fan base of the book. So the studio's only real move is to hold their breath and hope the internet's short attention span kicks.
Which, in this case, it clearly didn't.
No, it backfired completely.
Because Adeyemi didn't just leave it at a vague warning. The second screenshot she posted is a direct message sent to the lead actress of the film, Amandla Stenberg.
And the text is brutal.
It really is. Quote, "Do not ever use my name in an interview or video again. Do not text me. Do not call me."
It is the ultimate bridge burning. Releasing a private, interpersonal cease and desist to your lead star completely shatters the illusion of the synchronized Hollywood dance.
It really does. I look at this like a hostage negotiation where the hostage taker isn't allowed to tell the police what their actual demands are.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, Adeyemi is bound by her NDA, so she can't reveal the content of the fallout. She can't say, like, the studio changed this plot point, or the actress did this specific thing on set.
Right. She can only reveal the shape of the fallout, and the shape of it is complete and utter toxicity.
But let's look at the timeline the source provides here, because the timeline is where this goes from a standard feud to something much deeper.
Okay, let's break it down.
That explosive text message to Stenberg was sent in February of 2025, but Adeyemi didn't post to TikTok until July of 20.
So that's a 17-month gap.
Right.
That is a massive incubation period for resentment.
Exactly. What on earth is happening for 17? Why sit on that text message for a year and a half before pulling?
It suggests a profound breakdown in whatever mediation efforts the studio attempted during post-production.
But more importantly, the source, John Del Aro, connects that delayed explosion to a very specific cat.
What is he?
He points to a follow-up message Adeyemi sent to her fans where she stated she will not watch the film. And she said it is painful holding this back from her fans, quote, more than
glitter. It's such an odd word to use when you're publicly disavowing a multi-million-dollar film.
It is, but Del Aro's claims this is a coded reference to a massive underlying casting controversy centered around colorism.
Okay, so let's define the parameters of that conflict for a second.
Yeah, please.
The character of Princess Amari in the novel Children of Blood and Bone is explicitly described as having very dark skin. But Amandla Stenberg, the actress cast in the role, has a lighter complexion. Del Aro's asserts that the glitter comment is Adeyemi, signaling to her fans that the studio fundamentally betrayed the visual and thematic integrity of the book's character.
And this is a highly charged, deeply debated issue, particularly within the YA literature and book talks.
Absolutely. Colorism is a massive point of discussion.
Right. The prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a darker skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial.
Yes, and for the fan base, casting a lighter-skinned actress in a role written for a dark-skinned character isn't just viewed as a Hollywood creative liberty.
How is it viewed?
It's often viewed as an act of erasure and an ideological betrayal of the author's original intent.
But wait, how does the actor navigate that? If Stenberg knows she is walking into a colorism controversy casting, she has to have a PR strategy to mitigate it, right?
Right, and this brings us to the collision of narrative. According to the source, Stenberg's strategy was to completely co-opt the author's intent. Del Aro points to an interview Stenberg did with Entertainment Weekly. In this interview, Stenberg lays out a highly emotional, deeply personal version of events regarding her casting.
Oh, right. I remember this. Stenberg claimed she had a private meeting with the author, Tomi Adeyemi.
Yes.
And Stenberg told Entertainment Weekly that Adeyemi revealed she was inspired to write the entire series specifically because of the racist backlash Stenberg faced years ago.
Right. We should give some context for that. When Stenberg was a child, she played the character Rue in The Hunger Games.
Yeah. And despite the character being described as black in the novel, a very loud, very toxic segment of the fan base unleashed a horrific wave of racist harassment against this child cast.
It was a defining, traumatic moment in pop culture history. So the narrative Stenberg presents in the EW interview is that Adeyemi saw that trauma, internalized it, and wanted to write grand fantasy stories for black girls of all shades to ensure that kind of backlash never happened again.
See, it is the ultimate Hollywood PR spin. It takes a past trauma and weaponizes it into a shield for a present controversy.
Exactly.
Stenberg is quoted in the interview literally in tears, saying of this interaction with the author, quote, God wants me.
She is claiming absolute divine and authorial mandate.
Yeah, she is telling the press, and by extension the fans who might be upset about colorism, like, you can't be mad at my casting because the author literally created this universe in my honor.
Which makes the timeline we discussed earlier so incredibly damning.
The whiplash is just enough to break your neck. Stenberg goes to the press and publicly invokes Adeyemi's name in tears to validate her presence in the movie.
Yeah, man.
And the very next month, February 2025, Adeyemi fires off that brutal text message: "Do not ever use my name in an interview or video."
This is where we see the mechanical failure of the Hollywood PR mission. The standard playbook for mitigating a casting controversy is to lean on the creator's blessing.
Right. If the author loves it, the fans accept. But I have to push back here for a sec. Is it possible Stenberg just wildly misinterpreted a polite conversation?
Or did Adeyemi realize her personal story was being used as a human shield and just completely snap?
Right. Based on the ferocity of the text message, it heavily implies the latter.
I agree. Whether Stenberg embellished the interaction or simply deployed it without permission, Adeyemi clearly felt her personal narrative and her creative boundaries were being hijacked to serve the studio's damage control.
She refused to be the PR shield.
She aggressively reclaimed her boundary. She established a private reality that violently contradicted Stenberg's public narrative.
And this is where John Del Arroz takes this isolated incident and scales it up. He doesn't view this as a one-off misunderstanding.
No, he frames this as part of a deeply ingrained, recurring behavioral pattern for Amandla Stenberg.
Right, because if this were an isolated incident, maybe Paramount could brush it off. But Del Arroz argues this isn't a glitch in Stenberg's career feature.
He points to what happened just last year to establish this track record. Let's pivot to 2020.
Okay, 2024.
He focuses on Stenberg's role as the lead in the Disney Plus series The Acolyte, set in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, man. The metrics the source provides for this show are just a bit. He notes it ended up 14% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, a 3.4 on IMDb.
And Disney completely canceled the multi-million-dollar series after a single.
Now, Star Wars fans are notoriously intense, right? Backlash is practically a rite of passage for that franchise.
It really is. And the old-school Hollywood playbook for dealing with franchise backlash is pretty standard.
You put your head down, your publicist releases a statement thanking the fans for their passion, quietly retreat.
Exactly. You maintain the barrier between the star and the audience.
But Stenberg obliterated that barrier. Del Arroz focuses on her response to the negative audience reaction to the act.
She didn't issue a press release.
No. On Juneteenth, she dropped an original music video on her Instagram. She literally wrote and produced a diss track titled Discourse aimed directly at the fan.
It is a radical departure from traditional public relations. She engaged directly in the arena of the content economy.
Let's look at the specific lyrics and captions the source provides, because they are incredibly combative.
What does she write?
Her caption read, quote, "Happy Juneteenth to those who are flooding me with intolerable racism. Since it took me 72 hours on my laptop to make this song and video, you got 72 hours to respond. I expect choreo."
And the core lyric of the song.
The core lyric is, "I don't give an F about your dis."
Wow. So Del Arroz uses this specific event to diagnose what he views as her fundamental operating procedure.
Right.
He argues that Stenberg's default mechanism for handling any form of criticism, whether it's about the pacing of a show, the writing, or a casting choice, is to universally frame all negative audience reaction as racist.
Hang on, I have to challenge the source's premise here for a second.
Go ahead.
Is Del Arroz completely ignoring the fact that Stenberg did receive a highly documented, verifiable wave of horrific racist harassment during the Hunger Games?
And almost certainly during The Acolyte as well.
Right. Is he just brushing aside the reality of internet toxicity to fit his narrative?
That is a crucial distinction to make regarding the commentator's argument.
Is it?
Del Arroz isn't necessarily arguing that she receives zero racist harassment.
Oh, so what is he arguing?
His critique is focused on how she weaponizes the harassment. His argument is that she uses the existence of toxic trolls to invalidate the entirety of the audience's legitimate criticism. He outlines a 5-step pattern. She enters a beloved franchise. Controversy inevitably follows the project. She responds by dropping the fourth wall and combating the audience, framing the collective criticism as bigotry.
The project collapses under the weight of the toxic.
And she moves on to the next franchise.
And he is using that acolyte pattern as the Rosetta Stone to decode the Children of Blood and Bone disaster.
Exactly.
He is suggesting that Tomi Adeyemi, who is deeply plugged into internet culture, saw this exact pattern unfolding. She saw Stenberg preparing colorism defense, and Adeyemi preemptively blocked.
She wanted to stop her own book's fan base from being dragged into Stenberg's outrage cycle.
It's a fascinating theory of self-preservation.
It suggests the author realized the star was radioactive and severed the cord to protect her own intellectual property from being consumed by the discord.
I just find this direct-to-audience combative approach absolutely fascinating from a structural level. It used to be that the screen was a barrier.
Not anymore.
Now the stars in the TikTok comments fighting with a user named Jedi Master 9.
It gamifies the outrage. It validates the troll's efforts.
Yeah, it does. Telling a massive, angry fandom that you don't care about their discourse ever actually quiet them down.
It acts as an accelerant every single time. By engaging in the combative language of the internet, the actor fuels the exact machinery they are criticizing.
Because the internet economy runs on conflict.
Precise. When a star fights back, it generates thousands of reaction videos, video essays, and Twitters. It guarantees that the cultural memory of the project will permanently be the conflict, not the art itself.
And Delaros uses the cancellation of the acolyte as empirical proof that this combative PR strategy is fundamentally destruct product.
Which brings us to the most critical pivot in the source material. Delaros doesn't stop his analysis at the interpersonal drama between an actor and an author.
No, he goes much bigger.
He uses this fractured relationship and the failure of these massive projects to launch a macro critique of the entire entertainment.
Right. We are shifting from the specific incident to the commentator's overarching ideology. Let's examine his broad...
This is where we see how the independent commentary ecosystem functions. The specific celebrity drama is merely the hook to introduce a systemic diagnosis.
And remember, we are impartially outlining his claims here. Delaros argues that the modern Hollywood and publishing apparatus is fundamentally broken because it has abandoned meritocracy in favor of...
He claims that individuals are routinely published, hired, or promoted specifically because of their race or gender through DEI initiatives,
rather than the objective quality of their work.
Right. He is tapping into a highly polarized national debate. His thesis is that when a system prioritizes demographic representation over narrative quality, the resulting product is inherently flawed.
And the inevitable audience rejection is then unfairly branded as bigotry by the creators.
Exactly. He takes specific aim at the young adult fiction ecosystem and book talk.
Oh, yeah. He highlights the industry's reliance on sensitivity readers.
Let's get some context for that term.
Yeah, these are consultants hired by publishers to review manuscripts for potentially offensive content, cultural inaccuracy, or harmful stereotypes.
And Delaros used this practice not as quality control, but as a mechanism of ideological compliance that sterilizes storytelling.
He also diagnoses what he calls a vicious cycle within the readership itself, right?
He does. He argues that the modern YA ecosystem encourages performative reading.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning, he claims that readers on platforms like BookTok proudly proclaim they aren't racist simply because they purchase and display these specific DEI-approved books.
So turning the act of reading into a hollow virtue signal rather than a genuine engagement with literature.
That's his argument. And to bolster this argument that the industry is practicing active discrimination, he pulls in outside data.
Yeah, he references an interview from Project Veritas regarding the Walt Disney Company,
which is a highly controversial organization known for hidden camera sting operations, often aimed at uncovering alleged liberal bias in corporate or media entities.
Right. So he uses a claim from this Project Veritas that a lighter-skinned Black employee at Disney was passed over for a promotion in favor of a darker individual.
And he uses this specific anecdote to argue that the industry practices blatant reverse discrimination.
He ties this right back to the colorism casting controversy with Amandla Stenberg.
In his view, the entire corporate system has become so pathologically obsessed with grading skin color that it is actively destroying its own ability to function,
resulting in massive, chaotic messes like the one we are discussing today.
Notice how he constructs the narrative here. He takes the undeniable reality that an author publicly blocked her lead star, which is a bizarre, chaotic event, and he retrofits it as empirical evidence to validate his pre-existing world.
The interpersonal drama ceases to be about two individuals clashing. It becomes a symptom of a diseased, collapsing empire.
And he argues that the empire knows its collapse. He believes Paramount Pictures is fully aware that this project is toxic.
Let's look at the release date strategy, he points out, because this is really... Children of Blood and Bone is set to release on January 15th, 2027.
Delaros hones in on that specific month.
Right. He argues that January is traditionally used by Hollywood studios as a dump month to bury projects they have completely lost faith in.
The economic realities of Hollywood release windows largely support this theory, actually.
Right. Tell me about that.
Well, the prime real estate for a studio tentpole is the summer blockbuster window or this prestigious late-year holiday season. January and February are historically the graveyard. It's where studios place movies that test poorly with focus groups, have irredeemable marketing complications, or are perceived as total financial write-off.
Because audience turnout is lower and expectations are non-existent.
Exactly. So Del Rose hypothesizes that Paramount greenlit this project years ago when this specific brand of YA fantasy was dominating the market.
But now they are holding a finished, multi-million-dollar asset, and they realize the cultural tide has completely turned.
Right. He claims audiences are actively rejecting this type of social engineering content.
Plus, the lead actress has a proven history of toxic, combative relationships with fandoms, and the author is actively sabotaging the PR.
So the studio has simply calculated that their best move is to sweep the movie under the rug in the dead of winter.
It's an analysis of Hollywood economics through the specific lens of culture warfare.
He is analyzing the studio's risk mitigation strategy.
Let's really break down that financial calc because the sunk cost fallacy is fascinating here.
Let's do it.
Imagine you are that Paramount exec. You've spent $80 million on production. To market a blockbuster, you typically spend another $40 to $80 million on prints and advertising, the P&A budget.
Right.
If your project is a radioactive PR nightmare before you've even released a trailer, how do you evaluate that P&A spend?
Do you spend another $50 million trying to convince an angry internet to see the movie?
Or does that just pour gasoline on the fire?
It's a brutal, deeply cynical calculation. Sometimes the mathematically sound decision for a multinational conglomerate is to release the film quietly, take the tax write-off or the minimal box office return, and protect the broader reputation of the studio.
You actively choose to stop throwing good money after bad.
Exactly. If Del Ros's hypothesis correct, dropping a massive fantasy epic in mid-January is Paramount's way of tiptoeing away from an explosion they know they cannot contain.
So the commentator has meticulously painted this picture of absolute...
The mainstream system is ideologically compromised.
The studios are burying their own movie, the stars are at war with the audience, and the authors are barricading themselves behind it.
It is a bleak, apocalyptic vision of modern entertainment.
But John Del Rose doesn't leave his audience sitting in the ash. He uses this sprawling structural critique to execute a razor-sharp pivot.
Let's look at how he positions the independent alternative.
Because this is perhaps the most vital component to understanding the business model of modern net comedy.
The critique we just spent all this time dissecting is ultimately the top of a marketing funnel. I would call this specific strategy the outrage funnel.
Outrage funnel, I love that term. Explain how that mechanism actually works in practice here.
Well, the commentator aggregates an audience that is disillusioned, frustrated, or alienated by the failures of mainstream Hollywood.
Right.
He validates their frustration by diagnosing the systemic issue, the DEI issue, the combative stars.
And once the audience is primed and in agreement that the monoculture is dead,
he seamlessly transitions to offering the solution, which just so happens to be his own product.
Exact. After tearing down the Hollywood apparatus, Del Rose pivots directly to self-promotion. He introduces his audience's own creative, specifically his YA, sci-fi, and fantasy, starting with a novel titled For Steaming Country.
He positions his independent work as the direct antidote to the disease system he just diagnosed.
The stats and themes he highlights are carefully curated to appeal to the audience. He just walked through the outrage funnel. He states it's a 6-book series, and he's currently writing the 7th.
And he claims he has sold over 30,000 copies, primarily through organic word of mouth and platforms like Kindle Unlimited.
But the thematic contrast is where he really closes. He says his books feature real patriotism, they have real heart, and he describes his work as a nice optimism.
He argues that audiences are absolutely starved for this kind of hopeful traditional narrative because mainstream media refuses.
He is drawing a stark binary con. He is saying, over there is Hollywood. It's cynical, it's mired in culture wars, the creators hate you, and the movies are terrible.
But over here is my work. It's optimistic. It's patriotic, I respect my audience, and I'm giving you exactly what you...
He is monetizing the cultural fracture.
It is an incredibly savvy hustle.
I look at this pivot and I see a very metaphor. It's like a street musician standing on the sidewalk, pointing across the street at a burning, multi-million-dollar symphony hall.
I like where this is going.
He yells to the crowd on the street, hey, look at that absolute mess over there. The orchestra is fighting the conductor, the building is on fire, and the tickets are overpriced.
Anyway, buy my mixtape.
Exact. It's fireproof. I made it all myself, and it sounds better anyway.
That analogy perfectly encapsulates the modern creator economy. Independent commentators don't need to defeat Hollywood. They just need to siphon off a fraction of its disillusioned audience to build highly profitable alternative micro-empire.
And Del Arroz acknowledges the reality of his position in this micro-empire. He bluntly states that a mainstream Disney adaptation of his work will never happen.
The ideological divide is just too vast.
But he doesn't view that as a defeat because his eyes are on the technology. He brings up artificial intelligence.
This is where the critique of the present collides with a vision for the future.
He expresses a futuristic aspiration. He hopes that one day AI will advance to the point where he won't need a massive studio apparatus.
He won't need Paramount's $80 million.
He won't need to navigate casting controversies, and he won't need a bloated PR department. He believes he will eventually be able to independently generate high-fidelity, feature-length movies based on his books using just artificial intelligence.
It is the ultimate dream of the independent creator.
Yeah.
Complete autonomy over the means of production, entirely bypassing the gatekeepers of the traditional monoculture.
So how do we synthesize all of this? Let's zoom out and summarize the massive landscape we've covered in this deep dive.
It's been a journey.
We started by looking at a shockingly aggressive TikTok screenshot from a YA author seemingly detonating her own upcoming blockbuster.
We unravel the complex underlying web of casting controversy, specifically the debate around colorism.
And we examined how a lead actor's emotional PR narrative collided violently with an author's private boundaries and NDA.
We analyzed the historical pattern of the star, examining how the relationship between actors and fandoms has fundamentally fractured.
Moving from carefully crafted press statements to direct combative engagement in the content arena.
And then we zoomed way.
We examined how an independent commentator uses those specific messy failures to indict the broader Hollywood and publishing, critiquing DEI initiatives and exposing the cynical economic strategies of studio dump month.
And finally, we saw how that critique is weaponized through the Outrage funnel as a marketing tool to build an alternative entertainment empire with an eye firmly fixed on an AI-generated.
It is a complete mapping of the modern cultural battle. Now, we want to connect this directly back to you and your daily media consumption.
Because you'll see this everywhere now.
The next time you open your feed and you see a movie trending, not because the trailer is amazing, but because there is some massive, convoluted behind-the-scenes drama or an actor is fighting with fans in the comments, you aren't just going to see the noise.
You are going to see the main.
You will recognize the PR spin desperately trying to contain the fire. You will understand how the legal reality of NDAs creates the information vacuums that fuel speculation.
And most importantly, you will easily spot the cottage industry of independent commentators waiting on the sidelines.
Ready to dissect the wreckage and funnel that outrage into their own ecosystem.
You'll be able to look past the symptom and see the structural mechanics at play. And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over, building on the commentator's hope for artificial intelligence.
Play it on us.
If AI eventually advances to the point where independent creators like John Del Arroz can produce high-fidelity, feature-length films entirely on their own, if they can completely bypass the Hollywood studios, the casting directors, and the massive PR, will that finally end the era of these massive shared pop culture controversies?
Because there will be no friction between creator and studio.
Exactly. Or, conversely, without a central mainstream monoculture for all of us to collectively argue about, will we simply retreat further into highly personalized, ideologically pure entertainment bubbles?
And lose the shared concept of discourse altogether.
Right. Something to think about.
It's a wild thought. Are we going to miss the chaotic, burning symphony hall when everyone is just sitting alone in their own perfect AI-generated?
I might.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We encourage you to keep asking questions, keep looking beyond the headlines, and remember that there is always a deeper mechanism driving the drama you see on. Until next.